Hi, welcome to East Creek. I'm East Creek Joe. Today we're going to trim a bowl. We're going to start off here. I have the two Kemper trimming tools. They come with a Kemper tool set. These are just basic trimming tools. They should be around, kicking around most shared studios. I don't like to do any special ones. You can get nicer versions of these that I have no objection to, and they stay sharp for longer. So if that's for you, great. But if you're just using the standard set, here they are. We're going to start off. This is a pretty big bowl, and I've got it cut off the bat here, and I have a wider bat on my wheel for trimming. And my first step to do anything is I have to get this bowl that I have upside down and onto my other bat. And that can sometimes be a kind of a challenge, especially with the bigger thing. And so my first step is I'm going to pick this up and see, I'm picking it up from the bottom, and I'm going to kind of just like flex my hands here to help pop the bat off. And, I like to have, the bottom is somewhat soft and the rim is kind of getting towards unbendable. So I'm going to try to utilize that to my advantage. And one thing you can do if you feel like you're not able to handle the piece is flip the bat and use two bats to flip the whole thing. But that sometimes takes a friend. And this bowl feels like it's just about the maximum size that I can do a flip. And so I'm going to kind of do this, and you can do this on a smaller scale. I'm kind of going to hold this in my hands, and with my chest, just going to flip it over. And, just like that kind of cradled position was helpful to that. And if you saw the throwing a big bowl video, you know that I attached the bottom of this bowl in here. And so you see there's a little bit of an artifact from where I did that attachment. And so, one thing I can do is kind of feel in here and just kind of assess what's the bottom look like. But for most trimming, you won't have to worry about that. And this is also will be a good illustration of how to deal with stuff like that as you're moving from a thrown piece to a finished product. So obviously my first step here is I've got to try to get this centered. And in the vein of start close to where I want to end up, I'm just going to look and try to do the best job I can centering this on the bat that I have. And then I'm going to start it spinning slowly and just see where we're at. It's not bad actually at all. And you'll see a lot of methods for centering stuff. One of them is this tap centering method, which is really cool. Doesn't work very well on really big stuff like this. And so if I have a piece that's large, what I'm going to do is use a wood knife or a needle tool or something to make a mark. And I'm just going to come in on the side. I'm going to hold this perfectly still, like perfectly still. And as the pot goes, it wobbles, whichever side it's biased to will hit the tool and leave a mark. And so I'm basically going to leave a mark on the side that the bowl is biased to. Now I've left the mark on there, and I'm going to use my two pointer fingers to find the ends of that mark. So here's one end over here, and here's one end over here. Now I've found that. Now I'm going to use my eyes to find the middle of my two fingers and put that aligned with my belly button. And then I'm going to scoop my hands all the way down to the bottom, to the rim, so that I can make a really controlled push in the direction away from the mark. I know that my pot is about a 1/4 inch off center, I think. So I push it about that much. Now I'll repeat that process. I like to go down the pot. I like to have a sequence of lines. If you're doing it right, the line should get longer and longer until it's one continuous line. If you hit it right on the first time, then it will be all done. I didn't actually do a great job on that last one. I pushed it too far. Now as I do this, my line that I put on here reveals that I actually pushed it past center. So now I'll, on my new line, repeat that process, but hopefully this time I'll learn my lesson and I won't push it so far. So I'll come and maybe when I said I push it a 1/4, maybe I push it a 1/2. So I'll really try to just scoot it a little bit and see if that will do me. Now I'll put another line. And that's much better, but there's still a bit of off-centeredness that I can address, and I'll do that last time, hopefully last time, but I'll keep doing it until I'm seeing that continuous line. going around. And now I've got to where I want to be. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but if I can draw a continuous line around this with a firm tool, then it's as centered as I want to be. These bowls, especially these big bowls, they never really get perfectly centered. So one thing that I would usually do that I wouldn't necessarily need to do with such a big bowl is stick it down with clay. I have seen people stick 3 balls of clay, like a tripod kind of configuration, and I think that is really detrimental to keeping your piece centered. I prefer to stick clay down in a north, south, east, west position. And so, if you don't mind, I'm just gonna.
Yeah, go for it.
Merry Christmas.
It's gonna be pretty wet though.
That's it. I want to take a picture of this dryer stuff. So if I'm gonna stick balls down, I like to use balls that are about the size of golf balls. I don't quite have that much in my hands right now, so I'll demonstrate with slightly smaller balls. But I like to create 4 balls of clay, and I wad them up into reasonably round balls. And then I put them, to do the north, south, east, west configuration, I put them on the sides and where they're just barely touching the rim. And then I push down. And when I push down, the clay will squish out. And so then that way it like creates a firmness on the rim without me pushing. I see sometimes people like pushing in and stressing the rim. And you really don't want to stress the rims because you can cause cracking if you stress the rim like that. So I'll do that for the north, south, east, west configuration. Again, if you have a really big wide bowl especially that's kind of heavy, a lot of times you don't actually need to do this because the pressure you're putting on the thing to trim it is just not near the amount of friction that big rim in contact with the bat will create. So I've got my bowl stuck down, and I'm gonna come back and just make sure that I didn't push it off when I stuck it on it. And it feels like maybe I did a little bit. And so I'm just gonna feel which direction it's off. So I could do that line process again, but also I can just feel it and cheat. I demonstrated the slow way to a process that you can just do with your hands and your foot pedal. Okay, that's a little better. So somehow I pushed it off a little bit when I was sticking the balls down, but I've got it back on center. Don't hesitate to check yourself, realize you've made a mistake, and make an adjustment. So now I have this bowl. I have memorized what the inside of the bowl looks like. Super important to know what the inside of the bowl looks like. And I have an idea of the kind of foot that I want to have on the bowl. I also noticed that I have this little defect here, and so it will be convenient for me to put the foot just inside that defect so that then I'll trim the defect out and I don't have to worry about it. So what that means is that my first step here is going to be to determine where the outside of the foot ring is going to be. And that is going to be a judgment call that I'm going to go with right now, and then I'm going to stick with it throughout the trimming exercise. I'm going to trim. Everything is going to be to this decision now. So I'm going to use my smaller Kemper trimming tool. The bigger one is great for clay removal. I use it a lot, but I'm going to use a smaller one just to set my angles. And you'll notice that I have my pot going a certain kind of like wherever I'm trimming, I want the miles an hour to be reasonable. So if I was going to trim way out here, it's going a lot faster, so I'd slow the wheel down. If I was going to trim in here, it's going a lot slower, so I might have to speed the wheel up a little bit. So the efficacy of the cutting tool has to do with how fast the clay is going underneath it, which makes sense. But you can modulate that, and I would. The other thing I'm doing is I'm left-handed, so I hold the tool like a pencil this way. If I was right-handed, I'd hold the tool like a pencil this way. Either way, I have a solid kind of pencil-type grip that I will also then bring in another hand. I like to do this kind of overhand, and as I move around, I'm changing my hand grips, but what I'm trying to do always is somehow hold the trimming tool really tight and use it at the angle at which it does a good job cutting. And then I want to stabilize that with my other hand. And then I want to stabilize my hands using my knees on my legs. And sometimes if I'm feeling like I really need to get stable, I might shift my weight back, my butt back, so that I can get my face down closer. I can get really close, like this kind of position, because then I can do trimming where I'm also stabilizing off my head. And so, like, you can imagine, this looks, I don't know if how it looks in the video, kind of ridiculous, but to the people in the room, I'm sure like you can see how this is a pretty darn, it'd be hard to move me off of this position. So, you know, that's that body setup. So just like in the throwing, where the first step is, okay, let's set our body position. How do we set ourselves up? Same thing goes with trimming. It's really important, makes it a lot easier if your body's in the right position. So, I will come in here and start by making a line where my foot is going to end up going. And now basically I'm going to trim to that. So depending on how big the piece is, I could start from there or even come out. A lot of times this rim, the rim being the bottom that where you cut it off, is like kind of crazy. And a lot of times it's not great to cut on that. And so what I like to do is, you know, and I kind of realized this as I came here, it's like, well, actually what I can do is instead of cutting from out on the outside in, I'm gonna start on the inside of it, make my own line and cut out behind it, cut it out from behind, so that then I'm never having to interact with this craziness. And that seems like life advice. You know, if you got craziness, you know, go around behind, don't interact with it and cut it out. So I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna kind of do that from this line that I've made, where I'll cut out from that. And then as you see, I'm cutting down through, and as I hold this, I do like to keep my ribbons kind of managed so that I can see. And I'm cutting, basically I'm like trimming down and out, so that eventually this, I will waste this ring, this whole big ring. And there's a ton of extra clay on this bowl. And as you probably see in the video, I kept calling it, oh, it's support clay, it's support clay. This clay, I needed this clay for the throwing process. It was like scaffolding. Now, building's done, I'm gonna take the scaffolding off, no problem. But it does require me cutting off quite a bit. And, whoops, trimming through some weirdness. The key to successful trimming is holding the tool super firm. So I'm always really focused on that. And so now I've cut down in here this way, and really what I'm trying to avoid is just like this corner. Down over here, it's not so bad. So now that I've cut down this way, I'm gonna also trim in this way from underneath so I can kind of isolate the craziest part so that I never have to touch my trimming tool to that. It's really hard to trim on a crazy thing. And also crazy things dry weird, and so they're often like crusty. And crazy plus crusty can't be good. It's a lot of clay, so it takes some time, but no hurry. Because after all, it is a lot of clay, and it's a huge bowl. You could bathe an infant in it. What a special memory that would be. Or make a big spaghetti at a frat house. Equally special, of course. But either way, whether it's bathing an infant or feeding the frat boys, this foot is not going to chip because it's going to be nice and round. You know, we're going to think carefully about what this bowl could be used for and how we can keep it from getting destroyed in use and in the cupboard. So I'm just kind of chipping away at this, and as I get up to a place, this is going to kind of get where I can kind of rip it off. And I like to rip it before it gets, you know, it kind of gets to a place where you could, and the other thing I could do is come in here with a needle tool and cut it off, but, you know, I like to get it so that there's just this little seam line, and I can pull this off, and now it'll be easy for me to clean up this craziness that I've left behind, because it's not that crazy. This is when I'm going to start coming in with my larger trimming tool. And as I'm holding this, again, the two-handed grip, every chance I get to brace and hold this tool as if I'm a machine. If I, it's like if I was like a metal pole cemented into the ground, and I could hold this, and all I could do is like go, move kind of on one axis, like one curved axis. That would be the perfect trimming machine person. And the pitfall with trimming is like any kind of helical type motion, which is really easy for us to do with our arms, is not good. And so I'm focused on bracing myself in such a way that I can become that machine. As I do that, you can see that this messy edge is cleaned up pretty good. And now I still have in mind, I made this line at the beginning, and that's still where I'm targeting my foot. So I'm starting to envision that foot coming about, and I'm going to clean this up, and then I'm going to start working on that foot where I form the outside of the foot, and I'll do most of that outside foot formation, and then finish the inside and be done. So that's kind of the plan for the rest of this endeavor. I have the inside shape of the bowl in mind, and I'm trying to just match what I believe the inside shape to be, and then add the foot ring on top of that inside shape. And again, if you watch that video of throwing the bowl, you'll see there's a lot of clay in this thing, and that's on purpose. A lot of that clay is needed for the process of throwing such a large bowl and supporting its walls. And it's designed to be trimmed out. And so it takes a little bit, but you don't want to skip, you don't want to sleep on trimming that stuff out, or this bowl will be ridiculously heavy. Which sometimes is okay. You can have a bowl that's super heavy for specific uses, especially like outdoor kind of things or centerpieces that aren't going to move very much. And a lot of times, having a really heavy centerpiece for a coffee table is welcome, because you don't want your guests kicking your light vase off your coffee table and feeling bad. That it's not good for anybody. So having some of those design-based weight considerations is a welcome thing, and you shouldn't be ashamed of heavy pots that way.
If you're somebody that over trims easily, what do you recommend for not over trimming something like this?
Well, if you are over trimming a lot, I would just go buy a box of thumbtacks. Stick the thumbtacks on the inside of the bowl. Stick 5 thumbtacks, one from the center all the way up the wall of the bowl, and then trim until tick, 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 and then you keep trimming tick, 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 and then keep trimming tick, 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 and then that will determine that you have, the thumbtack's about 3/8 long. You can also insert it a 1/4 inch. So you can insert the thumbtack any amount of way and leave it there as an indicator. Then you can take those thumbtacks off, and if you're able to trim the bowl, if it's leather hard to trim, we just gone. The hole isn't going to come back, and so I would start there. I think also this idea of remembering the inside, and you can remember a lot better, or a lot of people can. I know I can, if you take a picture of it. And so taking a picture of the inside of your bowl and then be working on it, and then it's oh yeah, that's really helpful. And so as I'm doing this, do know I have a pretty clear picture of what the curve of the inside of this bowl looks like. And it's a little easier for me because this isn't the first time I've done this demo. This isn't the first time I made a bowl that looks like this. I just put another one of these that looks it might be darn near a set. I just put another one, a finished one here. I just made one of these a couple days ago. So I have this familiarity with the form that you can remind yourself of using tools. And I'm getting pretty close to where I want to be. I am noticing that there's a little bump here. So I'm not sure if you'll be able to see the video very well. There's a little holiday or a little place where there's not clay. And so one thing I'm going to do is right where it is, the clay is that dryness. And so I'm going to just take the clay that I just trimmed off, and I'm going to push it into that hole. Try not to trap any air. I'm just going to push it in there. I'll give it a little lick. And then I'm just going to kind of smooth it on there and just kind of rub it in. And now I'm going to start trimming again. And so I'm just kind of trying to fill that hole and then homogenize a little bit and then trim back over it so that it just goes away. And if you use clay that's the same wetness as your other clay, usually that works out okay. It's not always perfect, and I could probably just trim I'm just a little bit worried that if I trim all the way to the bottom of that hole, then the whole bottom of the bowl will be thinner than I want. So adding that little bit of clay, if you have like a little bubble or something, or a pocket that is weird, is totally viable. And now that I've done that, and I turn it again, that little spot is pretty much healed. And by the time this foot is done, it'll be like it never happened. I hope.
If you were trimming where you were right now and it was softer than you would you hit it with a blowtorch right now?
Absolutely. Anytime your clay is not how you want it to be, change it. You have the agency. It's on you, and you can do it. You can do it fast with the blowtorch. You have a big weed burner. You know, you can change from. You can make something leather hard that's on the wheel in like 3 minutes. You know, you can trim it right away. That's been very empowering for me, especially as I have advanced in my own career and done more demos. You know, so if you're demoing for students, you know, like being able to quickly dry your stuff out, it's like doing a cooking show where the oven works real fast. You know, it's very helpful. I'm feeling a little bit unsteady because I'm kind of out over nothing, you know? And if I'm feeling unsteady, then I can get my head down here, and that does a lot to steady me. Okay, I'm pretty close to the kind of shape and foot that I'm gonna want now, and now this becomes a refining issue. So the proportion of the size of the foot to the size of the rim is as I want. I'm thinking about how the rim looks and how the foot looks. It'd be weird. I have this nice big rim that I worked really hard to pull up there and keep it and all this stuff. Now if I make a little tiny foot, it'd be like a guy with a big giant head and little tiny feet. It would weird you out a little bit. So we want to have the relationship between the base, the body, and the rim be really well considered. So I want to have this foot be like probably 3/4 of an inch tall. I also, as I refine this, I want to keep in mind this bowl is heavy. When you put it down, chances are you're not going to put it down perfectly flat like a flying saucer. You're going to accidentally put it down on one corner of the foot. So if the foot has sharp corners and you put that down on a granite countertop or on a tile countertop or on your wood countertop, it's either going to break the foot or it's going to break the wood or dent the wood. So the solution to that is to make the foot on these really big bowls super rounded and be super considered. And also, if you're selling these, which if you're making bowls like this, you're probably selling some bowls. Your customers, they're gonna pick up the bowl and they're gonna feel the bottom. They're gonna think about that bowl on their $2,000 dining room table that they really care about too. And so it's really helpful to have well considered foot on your pot. That'll help make the sale. So I'll work on the curve. This is kind of my moment of, this is the moment where my vision will come to life, and then this vision started during the throwing process. It's also the moment where it's most risky that like right here I'll leave a flat spot or like mess up something that in the future I'll regret. So now it's worth moving my body a little bit and getting some time. One other thing I like to do is get off my stool and get down on my knees with my elbows on my stool. And then I can do this kind of a profile look as I complete my trimming. And that will also help me to remember the inside of the bowl and then envision it here. I have a lot better vision from this kind of a plane. So don't hesitate to do that. And also, this is a pretty good steady place to trim from if you are resting on the stool. Gotta watch out for the studio dogs though, because they'll come and sniff you and lick you. You don't have to worry about that with cats. Okay, get pretty close to where I'm satisfied with this curve. Again, I want a continuous curve that doesn't have any flat spots, that feels like it progresses and has a certain fullness. I want the bowl's fullness to suggest containment. And, for that reason, I kind of don't really like bowls with super straight walls, because I don't think that suggests the fullness of containment. And that's really related to the body. And I think pots are really related to the body, and a successful looking pot, often a successful wheel thrown pot, I can point to ways in which it relates to the body. And I think people really identify with the body in pottery. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Got a little bit of a little bump right here that I'm gonna try to kind of address. It's pretty dry at that point of the piece. Trip, please. Hey, my guy. Okay, so I feel happy with the outside of the bowl. Basically, I'm done with the outside of the bowl, and now I'm not going to mess with it again. I don't need to. All I got to do now is adjust the foot. So I'm going to get into my pile of trimmings here to find my smaller trimming tool. Notice I'm not touching the pedal really. I haven't needed to touch the pedal, and if I don't need to touch the pedal, I will not touch the pedal. Same thing goes here. I'd set my outside, and I'm going to clean up the outside of the foot a little bit, and then I'm going to set the inside of the foot. And I like to get the outside finished and set up, because if I mess up right now, I can go in a little bit on the foot and concede that little bit of clay. But if I start making the inside of the foot ring now, and then I mess up, I got a little pickle. So I'm gonna get this basically, I want this bowl that is like the Zoom meeting guy with a business suit and no pants. I want this whole thing business suit all the way to right here, and then totally unfinished. And then I want, please. You're ruining the take. You're ruining the take. He ruins the take. This is Trip. He's a sweet boy. He has a lot to say. Finish the outside before you start the inside of the foot ring. Here we go. Go outside, bud. Go outside, please. This is about a perfect leather hard. I'm really happy with how this feels. It's about the hardness of cheddar cheese. Say, what's leather hard? Tillamook medium cheddar cheese. I think you can buy that most places in the country. It's worth it. It's delicious cheese. It's also the perfect leather hard. Everyone can check it out. And then eat it. Grilled cheese, Tillamook medium cheddar grilled cheese on white bread. If you haven't had that, life's about to be changed. I like my feet to tilt out a little bit. A foot that goes like this is like somebody whose ankles are bigger than the bottoms of their feet. The aesthetic freaks me out. So I want to have that little bit of a wider foot that makes the piece look like it comes to a stable base on the table. Not a huge amount of tilt on that for me. Some people do make quite tilty feet. I hope your feet are tilted the right direction. You can add to that by undercutting a little bit on the end of the foot, and I like that, because and then that also adds to a feeling of roundness on the foot that I don't mind. And again, I'm really trying to emphasize the rounded outside edge so that it doesn't break when I put it on the counter. And so, that is an important design element for me in these big bowls, and I could make some design concessions or some functional concessions to design, but in this case, I'm not interested in that. Okay, so I have my foot pretty much there. I like how it looks. I'm coming in here with my finger to kind of essentially just burnish that rounded edge into this really velvety, smooth finish thing. This is where porcelain really shines for finishing. You can make these, or you use one of those soft rubber ribs and just make this so soft and nice. That is really, really nice. Like, make this really kind to the table, because this is going to be at the center of a beautiful celebration dinner on a big, expensive wooden table. Okay, so now I'm going to set the inside of the foot ring. Where is the inside of the foot ring going to be? And I'm just going to draw the line there. All I need to do is draw the line, and then I'm going to trim down a little bit, but away from the foot. And again, this is to protect myself from messing up. Everybody messes up where the tool catches and it's just this is a very high consequence place. We've worked so hard to put all this clay here and have it ready for us to trim. If we mess it up, it's high consequence. So I want to make sure that as I trim down, I'm setting myself up to mess up away from where I don't want to mess up. So I've trimmed down. Now I've kind of established a bit of a depth, and what I want is for the inside of my foot to be just roughly, basically exactly as deep as the outside. So if you have like a deep foot and then on the inside of the foot ring it's like comes way in, that represents a big change in thickness. And what I want is for the bowl to be even thickness and the foot ring to, as if it was a section of a sphere and the foot ring was just sat on top of it. That's the cross section that I'm looking to achieve. So with that in mind, I want the foot to be as deep on the inside as it is on the outside, for as even a wall as possible. And then I'm going to use this, I like to use the rounded end of this smaller tool. I'm holding it like a pencil, starting in the center. I've also increased the speed of the wheel just a little bit. I now have my foot on the pedals because I'm going to be modulating the speed a little bit. I like to go from the center out, and this is also a good time to bring in the head. Wait a minute. Okay, so I've done the kind of majority of the clay removal with my small tool, and now it's a risky tool. This little tool, because it cuts quickly, is a powerful tool. Trip, get out of here. Can you stop it, Jim? Get out. Out. Go outside. Beat it. Out of the studio, dude. Get out. Get out of here right now. Get out of here. Get out. Don't do that. No. You stop it. I'm going to cut that out. make like a little move to edit through. So now that I've got my major clay removed here, I'm gonna stop using the high risk tool and use this lower risk tool. If I went with this the whole time, I have a hard time getting it so it doesn't cut like a little bit weird, you know, if you cut a long ways with this thing. So that's just my own personal strategy, but you know, that seems pretty nitpicky. So you should do what you need to do to get the clay out in the way that works for you. I'm always doing weird grips just because I think they're more solid, you know, like these kind of fist looking grips, you know. I used to be more pencil oriented or like as if I was a painter or something. But I find a lot more success with these brutish grips.
He's back.
And I'll get the inside smoothed out. You'll notice my wheel's going a little faster. You notice my foot ring is quite substantial. I still got a good amount here, so it has some more surface area, and so that it doesn't look weird. This big bowl, a big bowl with a little foot is weird. So you know, keep plenty of clay there, and if you're gonna do a small foot, like go down to it rather than just forcing yourself into it without really deciding. And to mirror the outside, I'll make the inside rounded off as well. Inside of the foot ring, that is, to mirror the outside of the foot ring, that rounded edge. This also, if you round off the edge, think about this inside corner here when you're washing that. If it undercuts, it's gonna get like salad dressing in it or something weird. And it's nice to avoid that. So I like to kind of tack that out a little bit so that it's easy to wash. Rounding off the inside of the foot. This is also where if I was gonna use a rib on the inside, I would apply it, but this clay is smooth enough that I'm not gonna apply a rib to the inside. I'm fine with how this looks without like doing a wood rib or metal rib or anything, so this will be good. And my final thing is just, I'm coming in here and basically just burnishing this with my finger so that it's as velvety smooth as possible, and so that the whole thing maintains a rounded edge. And if I see that a little bit of, I've pushed up into a U or something a little bit, then I'll come in and just take off a little bit of clay, with the objective being to keep the whole foot nice and round and very gentle in its shape. Feeling pretty good about it. I'm thinking about where the foot is going to touch the table. It's nice and smooth as my smoothest finger. Always use your smoothest finger to do the smoothing. Okay, now it's time to look, and it's not too late to decide that we didn't do something or that, oops. So I'm gonna look, I'm gonna give a squat, I'm gonna have a look at the profile, I'm gonna decide, oh yeah, that looks great, I'm happy with how the curve looks, although I already decided that before, which makes this confirmation easy. The foot looks good, the edge is round, I can see it being put down on the counter, the rim is reasonable, and it's ready for my signature. So I'll sign it and flip it over, and I'm actually not gonna flip it over, I'll keep it on this bat until it gets to bone dry, and then flip it over and put it on the wear cart. And then I sometimes will bisque these on their rims, especially if the bowl looks like it's twisted a little bit, then I'll try to bisque it on the rim to keep it flat. But if you dry the bowls on their rims and they dry perfectly flat, then generally that's where that's the best time and place to avoid that memory twist that is kind of inevitable with all wheel throwing. So again, that is take the whole bat off, keep it on the rim, place it on the shelf, and dry it to bone dry on the bat, and then you can biscuit either on the rim or on the foot. Thanks. Like and subscribe.